Hey, what is up guys? You got Gypsy back here today with another exciting Borderlands 3 video for you. Now in this video today I'll be discussing the way Rakk damage is calculated in Borderlands 3 and how to optimize your build with the right skills and gear to get the most out of your Rakks. Before we jump into the video, I wanted to thank everyone for the support I've been getting on the last video where I discussed my initial kind of Rakk build and gave my thoughts on why it was such a viable playstyle in Mayhem 3. I've got a lot of great feedback from that video, so I'm keen to make more of these in the future. So starting things off, I want to break down how the game seems to treat the Rakks in terms of damage calculations and what skills actually affect the damage output of the Rakks. I've done a lot of testing, so by the end of this video I'm going to tell you all how you can get your Rakks damage output to go from its base 2,603 damage all the way up to 26,000 to 27,000 damage per Rakk versus flesh targets. So definitely stick around if you guys want to know how to do that. Firstly, through testing, I've confirmed that the game doesn't treat the Rakks as pets, despite them kind of seeming like pets of Flaks, and as a result, they don't benefit from the skills that increase the damage output of Flak's pets. This includes aspects of skills such as Ferocity, Go for the Eyes, Frenzy, Psycho Head on a Stick, and Pack Tactics that all increase the pet damage in different ways. Instead, the Rakks seem to be treated as an extension of Flak himself, in that their damage is directly affected by skills that boost Flak's own damage. Now there's a difference between the damage output and gun damage in the game. Damage seems to affect the overall damage output that Flak can dish out, such as guns, grenades, melee, and action skill damage, whereas gun damage simply affects the guns that Flak uses. This is really significant, as Flak has a few key skills in his trees that grant him sizable damage boosts, which the Rakks can take advantage of. These include the damage percentage increase of the Interplanetary Stalker skill, which can be stacked up to 3 times and has its effect increased further by the Big Game skill. Another skill that you might be surprised to find out can increase the damage of the Rakks is actually the Power Inside capstone for the Stalker tree. So since making my last video, I've seen a couple of other Rakk builds on YouTube, but not a single one I've seen has highlighted the Power Inside skill as being key in the build. Instead, most people choose to pick up the Megavore capstone skill in the Hunter tree, and there's nothing wrong with that. But what makes the Power Inside such a fantastic skill to have is the synergy that it has with the Rakk Attack action skill. Not only does it increase Flak's own damage output when an action skill is used, it also directly increases the damage that the Rakks do. Based on the testing I've done, the Power Inside skill increases the damage that the Rakks do after the action skill is used, and while Flak is at full health by 33%, while increasing it by 16% when Flak is below full health. Considering that the build is constantly sending out Rakks, thanks to the extra charge and insanely fast cooldown, the Power Inside skill has near permanent uptime, which also grants Flak the 50% damage boost himself if he's able to stay above full health, which is made easier by the health regen that the build sort of provides, as well as the health regen skills that I've chosen to spec into. We've also got my Stopgap Shield and my Lifesteal Relic, which really help with survivability and keeping Flak above full health, or at full health, I should say. Another interesting way that the Rakks damage can be increased is by using gear that provides an area of effect damage increase, and it took me a while to realize this, but the game seems to see the Rakks as a sort of area of an effect damage type, kind of like a grenade. So this means that you're able to increase the damage of the Rakks further with a relic or some sort of item, piece of gear that increases the stat area of effect damage, which is really interesting. There are 2 more obvious methods of increasing the damage of the Rakks. These are the action skill damage bonus that Interplanetary Stalker provides, as well as the Grim Harvest skill, which buffs the action skill damage by 25%. So now that I've discussed all these different ways that the Rakk damage can be increased, let's look at how the base damage of 2,600 can be brought all the way up to 26,000 to 27,000 per damage per Rakk. So this is pretty crazy, but to explain how this happens, we're going to start with a base damage of 2,600 in the default fire element versus a flesh target, which gives a 50% damage bonus. This is going to bump the damage of the Rakks up to 3,904. Next, we're going to look at the Interplanetary Stalker skill and the Big Game skills, which with the Cosmic Collector Stalker class mod can go up to 8 out of 5 and 4 out of 3 respectively. The 16% damage, I'm just going to switch over to that actually now so I can show you guys what I mean, and kind of illustrate that, you see here we've got 16% additional damage per stack, and we've also got 24% additional action skill damage per stack. And the bonuses you see here, these are due to my class mod that I have equipped, which is the Collector Cosmic Stalker. So this is, it's not too rare. I've seen a few of them around. I know a lot of people have this, but a lot of people tend to be running the other class mod that Flak uses, which has like a 3% chance to proc all your hunter skills on hitting an enemy with a bullet. But personally, I've found this to be even more effective. So we're going to jump into how that works here. So the 16% damage per stack of Interplanetary Stalker is boosted by 40% from big game, bringing it up to 22% per stack. With 3 stacks, that's 67.2% damage increase. This bumps the damage up to 6,527. Next, we'll look at the way the action skill damage increase of Interplanetary Stalker affects the Rakk damage. As you can see, with 8 out of 5, we get a 24% boost per stack, but this is increased by 40% thanks to big game, and then actually increased a further 25% thanks to the ability of the class mod that we're using. I'll just show you guys that here. We've got an ability on this, so Flak's hunt skill power is increased by 25%. For some reason it doesn't actually, I don't know if it's bugged, but it doesn't actually increase the damage stacking, just the 16% damage. It doesn't increase that, but it does increase the action skill damage per stack, as well as the movement speed and corrosion damage. So maybe that's something Gearbox needs to address, or maybe it is intentional and it wasn't ever intended to increase the damage increase. Regardless, it does increase the action skill damage stacking, and after the 40% increase from big game and the 25% increase from the ability of the class mod, 3 stacks is going to give a 126% increase to the action skill damage, which is going to bump up the damage of the Rakks to 14,752. Next up, we're going to consider the damage increase that the power inside offers the Rakks. While Flak is at full health and using his action skill, for 15 seconds he gains an additional 33% damage to the Rakks. This is going to increase the damage up to 19,669. That's a lot. That's per Rakk. And then now lastly we're going to look at the relic here. So this relic that I'm using, it gives me lifesteal, which is really nice. Some bonus health after killing an enemy. It also gives me action skill cooldown rate, but the big thing here is the 33% area of effect damage increase. This is going to bump up the damage of the Rakks to over 26,000. It's somewhere in between 26 and 27,000, depending on when I send it out. I'm getting either 26k or 27k popping up every time my Rakk hits an enemy. So, considering we are speccing into the flock and load skill in the hunter tree, the Rakk augment, we're going to be sending out 4 Rakks per use. So this is going to mean that we're going to have over 100,000 damage every time we send out the Rakks versus flesh enemies. And not to mention the power inside constantly being up as we're staying healthy, which is going to give us a huge 50% damage buff to Flak's other sources of damage output, like guns and grenades. You can go even further than this and invest in the Grim Harvest tree, which would give, at 5 out of 5 stacks, an additional 25% increase to the damage that Rakks can do. This would bring it up to 32,500 damage per Rakk, which is insane. But I prefer using these skills in the Hunter tree. In Two Fang, you can see I've got 4 out of 5 here. The weapon loadout that I have on my build is like large magazine weapons, so the extra 5% increase of Two Fang isn't that noticeable. I'd rather have the extra point down here, but I definitely want to invest 4 points in there just to get that 20% chance per projectile. And then 3 out of 3 in big game, because that gun damage is buffed by this 4 out of 3 in big game, and the critical hit damage as well being boosted is really nice. So the most dangerous game, definitely worth it in my opinion. But if you did really want to optimize the build for the Rakk build and get even more damage, like I said, you could invest 5 out of 5 in Grim Harvest. But I found this layout of skill choice to be definitely the best for me, and provides me with a lot of health regen. So I have tweaked it since my last video. I've moved some skills around here. I've invested all in all my BFFs to give my Spider Ant 100% health regen from Flak, which is huge considering we're getting a ton of health back from the Rakks when we attack, thanks to Falconer's Feast. We're also getting health regen health regen every time we're moving around, and we've got health regen from the self-repairing system. So that is going to be a pretty in-depth look into how Rakk damage is calculated, how you can boost it up to pretty insane levels, and why it really does just shred through flesh enemies. You pair this with something like an electric hex. I've been using the MIRV hex with the cryo element because this gives me increased damage versus frozen targets, this relic here. So it synergizes pretty well with this grenade mod. This being a great method of freezing enemies, as well as the Nighthawken, which was recently buffed in the latest hotfix. So that's pretty insane there. But you could definitely use an electric grenade, something like the electric hex or the Stormfront, or something synergizing just really nicely with the Rakks. But it's pretty easy to break shields in my experience in Mayhem 3. Just getting consistent headshots with the like reliable AR, and just letting the Rakks go to work. So I know a lot of people are bummed out about Flak since the nerf to fadeaway, but honestly there are so many other ways to play him. His skills are not limited to just stalker fadeaway builds. The power inside is fantastic and can be used well and truly outside of fadeaway. It can be used with the Rakk action skill to like amazing success. So yeah guys, definitely try this out, get creative with Flak, and let me know what you guys thought of this breakdown. I know there was a lot of numbers in here, but I've spent the past couple of days doing some testing, and I wanted to kind of get to the bottom of how the Rakk damage was calculated and how we could really optimize it. So yeah, I'm curious to hear what you guys think. Depending on what enemy you're facing as well with Interplanetary Stalker, this skill really is amazing. If you're fighting a whole lot of beast enemies, with the big game 40% extra skill effect, as well as my class mod, which gives me 25% extra hunter skill effect, your movement speed is going to be, I think you get a 73% increase in movement speed at 3 stacks, which means Flak is just zooming around the map in stuff like the Proving Grounds on Eden 6. It's crazy. Your movement speed is just insane. So it is a ton of fun to play, and the Rakks really do provide just incredible damage output, as well as being a fantastic source of health regen. So I really recommend you guys give this a shot, and yeah, let me know what you guys thought of the video. Did you enjoy the breakdown of this? And yeah, I'm curious to hear back. So thanks for watching, I do appreciate it, and I'll catch you all next time. Alright guys, so now we're going to move to some gameplay, and we are here in the world of Athena. We're just going to be running through and just facing a few mobs. I'm going to be showcasing how we can get those 27,000 damage numbers proccing with our Rakk attack once we build up enough stacks of Interplanetary Stalker, and once we've procced the power within. So yep, it's just a good, I came here because we are less likely to face anointed enemies, which do make it a little bit difficult to get the numbers that I'm trying to show off in this test. So yeah, I felt like Athena would be a nice testing ground for this. But yeah, so these guys, these badass, the badass flamers are obviously going to be heavily resistant to fire, so it's not going to be as effective versus them. But all the other enemies should be taking a ton from our Rakk attack, especially once we've procced all stacks of the Interplanetary Stalkers. So I'm going to take out this dude here, and I think we get another 26k up ahead here. So we are going to get a 26k versus this guy. Actually, we get a 27,000 damage Rakk hit versus that guy there, which was great. Yeah, so the max damage on my current build seems to be anywhere between 26 to 27,000 damage. We get another 26 there, which is great. So yeah, these Rakks really just putting in the work. It's going to be really effective if you can maintain your stacks of Interplanetary Stalker, which is pretty easy to do because the big game, the 4 out of 3 in big game, really does extend the duration by 133%. So those stacks are going to be sticking around a lot longer than they otherwise would be. You can see it deteriorating pretty slowly in the bottom part of the screen, and if you refresh it by getting a kill, you're just going to proc it back up, so that's going to be really nice. Power within is going to be pretty easy to keep up because we're going to be spamming the Rakks pretty consistently. In this gameplay, I'm playing it in such a way that I'm pretty much just trying to spam the Rakks as opposed to getting all the kills with my guns. So it is going to look a little bit strange, but for the purpose of this video, it works for sure. So building up those stacks, and yeah, that's going to be it. So I'm going to leave the commentary here. I'm going to let the gameplay keep running. Just look out for the damage numbers over the enemies when I do get 3 stacks and I do have the power within activated, and you'll see what I mean. This build is a ton of fun, and yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the gameplay, and thanks for watching.
That's the spirit.